In a black woman's kitchen, the air smelled of onions and smoke, and something slow that had been on the stove since noon. The older black woman is in every photograph you have ever seen from those years. The house dress, the hair pressed and set, the kitchen already warm by 6 in the morning. A kitchen off Beale Street, a walk-up in Bronzeville, a shotgun house down in the Delta. She did not count a single calorie, she did not read a barcode, and she did not own a food journal or a subscription to anything. She had a pot of neckbones going, a mess of greens, and an hour before the house filled up for supper. And most of what she ate has either disappeared from the black table or been swapped for something that looks the same and does the exact opposite. Number 1 is not even a diet food. She never called it that, and it cost her nothing. What these black women ate, what it did in the body, and what got put in its place, all the way down to number 15. If this is the kind of video you came for, tap subscribe and hit that bell. This is what this channel was built to make. Let us go. Number 15. In those years, the milk truck came down the street before 6 in the morning, and the older black woman heard the glass bottles on the porch before anything else. Whole milk with the cream risen to the top, or a blue and white can of pet milk on the shelf when money was short. Full fat, poured cold over the oatmeal, into the coffee, over a bowl of cereal. She never read the fat content on the bottle because it never once occurred to her to. The fat was the whole point. Full fat milk sends a fullness signal to the brain, and that message held her at the table clear to supper without a snack. Then in 1977, the guidelines told the country fat was the enemy, and black kitchens switched to skim right along with everybody. What nobody said was that low-fat milk needs sugar added back just to taste like anything. She traded the fullness for sweetness. The cream on top was gone, and she kept drinking what looked like milk and wondered why she was hungry an hour later. Number 14. Coffee Mate came onto the shelf in 1961. Before that, the older black woman put real cream in her coffee, or a good pour of pet milk from the can, strong coffee with chicory, the Louisiana tin open on the counter, poured from the same percolator every morning. Real fat, real fullness. She had 2 cups, and that was breakfast, or breakfast started right after. The fat in that cream slowed the sugar spike from whatever she ate beside it, so her blood sugar stayed level and she did not crash at 10 and go reaching for something. Then came Coffee Mate, a Nestle product built from corn syrup solids and hydrogenated oil. It was cheaper than cream, it never spoiled, and it was sold as modern, so she bought it because it made the morning simpler. What she lost was the fat. What came instead was corn syrup and trans fat, 2 things science would spend 40 years trying to undo. 2 cups of coffee with real cream. That was how she started the day, and it held her longer than anybody gave it credit for. Number 13. The pot made a low sound, not a boil, just a slow bubble, and the kitchen filled with the plain warm smell of oats and hot milk. The older black woman made her oatmeal the long way, the way her mother made it, 20 minutes on the stove, a pinch of salt, a splash of whole milk over the top. That round Quaker canister had been on the same shelf since before she was born. She did not cook it because a doctor said it was healthy. She cooked it because it was cheap, it was filling, and it held the whole house until noon. Whole oats have a low glycemic load, and the fiber slows the digestion so the fullness lasts 3 and 4 hours. She did not go picking between meals because her body was not asking. Then in the 60s, Quaker put out the instant packets, and by the 70s, they came already sweetened. A little envelope with nearly as much sugar as a candy bar. The oats were still in there. The fiber was still in there. But the sugar shoved it so high the good got mostly canceled out. She ate oatmeal. What replaced it ate like dessert. Number 12. Sunday was the big meal, and the older black woman started it in the morning. A roast or a hen or a pot of neckbones browned in the black cast iron, then set in low with onion and whatever the garden gave up, hours on a low fire until the fat cooked down into everything and the collagen in the bones melted into the liquid underneath. She served it Sunday, served it cold on Monday, and on Tuesday she put the bones back in a pot of water with an onion and let it go all day. What she made on Tuesday was bone broth. She did not call it that. She called it stock, or she did not call it anything because it was just what you did with the bones. Stay with this a second, because it matters. The collagen out of those long simmered bones settles the gut, slows the digestion, and holds a fullness for hours. That same liquid sits in a carton at the health food store today for $6, sold as a wellness product. The bones cost her nothing. Nothing in that kitchen went to waste. Not because she was trying to be good, but because the bones were there and the stove was already hot. Number 11. Cottage cheese was what the older black woman ate for lunch in those years, and full fat was the only kind there was. The older black woman kept a wax tub of it in the icebox and put a scoop on a plate with half a canned peach and called that lunch. Open any issue of Jet or Ebony from that time, and the ladies' pages had the cottage cheese plate in them because it was cheap, it was everywhere, and it worked. Full-fat cottage cheese is almost all protein and fat with next to no sugar. Protein at lunch meant she was not hungry come 2 in the afternoon, so she kept no snack drawer because she did not need one. Cottage cheese, a peach, a glass of cold milk, and she was done until supper. Then cottage cheese went low-fat like everything else, and low-fat dairy has to put the flavor back somehow, and the flavor they put back was sugar. The low-fat kind carries more sugar than the full-fat ever did. The very thing that filled her up was the fat they took out. The tub looked the same. What was inside was not the same food. Number 10. On a Friday, the older black woman baked her own bread, and the smell of it filled the whole house for an hour. Real cornbread out of the black cast iron, cornmeal and buttermilk, and a spoon of hot grease, heavy and golden with a crust that cracked when you cut it. Or a heavy loaf from the little bakery on the avenue, wrapped in paper and still warm on the walk home. It tore different from Wonder Bread. It had a weight to it and a chew that meant something. Wonder Bread was already on the shelf, but her bread was a different thing from the sliced white loaf in a way the label never explained. Made with buttermilk the way her mother did it, it sat lower and slower in the body, and there was no sugar poured into it and no spike behind it. Wonder Bread was enriched, and it had to be, because the milling stripped nearly everything real out of the wheat and then sprayed a few synthetic vitamins back on. It was soft, it lasted a month, and it was built for a shelf and not for a body. She ate bread at every meal, and she was not heavy. Her bread was not the same category of thing as the white loaf filling the carts by 1970. Number 9. Friday was fish, and in black households across the country that was near about a law. A tin of King Oscar sardines packed in oil, eaten right on a saltine for lunch. Canned mackerel worked into patties, or a can of tuna with a little blue plate mayonnaise and chopped onion on bread. The older black woman did not think of it as a health choice. It was lunch, and it cost about 35 cents. Sardines and small oily fish are some of the most complete food there is anywhere. Omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D, calcium out of those soft bones, B12, a whole protein. The omega-3s bring down the inflammation in the body and steady the very things that hold weight and appetite in line. She ate them every Friday and never thought twice. Then somewhere between 1960 and 1985, the country quietly stopped eating sardines, and black kitchens got pulled along. The tin got tied in people's minds to being poor and old-fashioned, and that was enough to kill the habit in one generation. The omega-3s are still in that same tin on the bottom shelf. Almost nobody reaches down for them anymore. Number 8. Down in the cool of the cellar, the older black woman kept her jars. Cucumbers out of the garden packed in salt and dill, cabbage and green tomato and pepper chopped into chow-chow and left to work in the crock for weeks. Her mother had made it, and her mother before her, and she still made it herself, even as the store jar showed up on the shelf. The difference between hers and the store jar was simple. Hers were alive. The fermentation grew the good bacteria, the same ones the drugstore now presses into a probiotic capsule and sells for $30 a bottle. Those bacteria settled the gut, steadied the appetite, and helped the body know when it had truly had enough. The store jar was put up with the vinegar and heat, and the heat killed every living thing in it. The two looked exactly alike on the shelf. What was inside was not the same at all. The crock got pushed to the back of the cabinet, and something that had been doing quiet work in a black woman's gut for generations went right along with it. Now here is what none of the foods on this list had in common with the things that replaced them. Not one of them came in a package a marketing man drew up in an office. Not one had a jingle on the television telling the black woman to go buy it. Not one was built in a laboratory to hit the exact place where salt and fat and sugar meet, and the brain forgets to say stop. She did not cook that oatmeal because an advertisement said it was healthy. She cooked it because her mother did. It cost about 12 cents, and it held her until noon. Everything that replaced these foods was not made because she needed something better. It was made because it could be turned out cheap in a factory, boxed to sit on a shelf for a year, and sold at a profit real food off the stove could never bring. She lost 15 foods, one at a time, and never felt a single one go. If this is hitting home, do me one small thing and tap that like button before we get into the last of the list. Now, number 7. One of you wrote to me under the last video that your grandmother ate half a grapefruit every single morning of her life and never once explained why. That older black woman did not have to. Every black woman in the neighborhood knew the grapefruit. By those years, it was not even a diet. It was just breakfast. Half a grapefruit, a soft-boiled egg, a cup of black coffee. Doctors put their name on it, and Jet and the Ladies' Pages ran a version of it in near about every issue that touched on keeping your figure. Here is why it worked. Grapefruit is mostly water and fiber, and it takes real work to eat one. Half of it before the meal takes up room in the stomach before the heavy food gets there. It slows the whole meal down and pulls the fullness forward. The older black woman ate less at breakfast, not because she was disciplined, but because there was less room left. Then the grapefruit went off the table in the 70s, and orange juice took its place. A glass with about as much sugar as a can of soda and none of the fiber, gone in 30 seconds instead of 10 minutes. The fullness was gone. The sugar stayed. She did not call it a diet. Number 6. In those years, plenty of black families still kept chickens out back. The older black woman might have 4 or 5 hens in the yard, and she gathered the eggs in the morning and cracked them straight into the hot cast iron. Or she got them from a neighbor down the street, or from the country people who came through the neighborhood. The yolk of that egg was deep yellow, almost orange, because a hen that eats grass and bugs and scraps out of a real yard lays an egg with far more vitamin D and beta-carotene than a hen standing its whole life on concrete eating corn. An egg from a hen raised right carries about twice the omega-3 and 3 times the vitamin E of a factory egg, and the color of the yolk tells you the whole story. Then in the 60s, the egg got blamed for cholesterol, the yolk in particular, and black kitchens bought the substitute in the carton right along with everybody. She scrambled up the whites and called it health food, and the part she threw in the trash held nearly all of the nourishment. By then, most eggs came from hens that never saw the sun, so the yolk was pale anyway. The good was already gone, and nobody had told her yet that the color meant a thing. Number 5. This is the one nobody expects on a list like this. The congealed salad. Walk into any black church basement in those years, any usher board meeting, any repast or Sunday cookout, and somewhere on the long table was a congealed salad in a ring mold. Lime gelatin with shredded carrots and crushed pineapple. A red one with celery and pecans folded down inside, turned out on a bed of lettuce. The older black woman made it for company, and on an ordinary week too, set overnight in the icebox, served before the meal or right alongside it. Here is what it was quietly doing. Real gelatin is mostly collagen protein, and a serving before or beside the meal slows the stomach, brings the appetite down, and puts protein in with almost no calories behind it. The bits of fruit and vegetable added a little fiber. It cost next to nothing, and it filled the spot at the table that today gets filled with bread, with chips, or with nothing at all before the main plate lands. Then in the 70s, the congealed salad got laughed out of the kitchen, treated like a joke, like something country and behind the times. What took its place before the meal was nothing at all. The first course disappeared, and the main plate got bigger than it had ever been. Number 4. Once a week, the older black woman cooked liver, and it turned out to be the most nourishing thing on the whole table. Chicken livers in the cast iron with a heap of onions cooked down soft, calf liver with a little bacon. Every black cook of that time knew what to do with it, and it went on the plate once a week without argument, because it was pennies at the butcher counter. Liver is the single most nutrient-dense food there is. A small piece carries more vitamin A than nearly anything, more B12 than almost any food, along with iron and zinc and folate in a density a daily multivitamin barely begins to touch. The black women eating liver every week were getting fed in a way no pill has matched since. Then liver fell off the table in the 60s and 70s, partly the texture, partly a generation that came up eating it through hard times and got tired of it, and partly because a little money meant you did not have to eat the cheap cut anymore. Those same nutrients are sold now as a freeze-dried capsule for $35 a bottle, called a Discovery. She paid 40 cents a pound and cooked it with onions. She did not need the capsule. Number 3. Before the cereal aisle swallowed the whole wall, the black table started the day with a real breakfast. 2 eggs, fried in the grease, a piece of bacon or a little salt pork, a square of cold cornbread or a slice of toast, and strong black coffee. The older black woman cooked it on the stove in about 8 minutes, and the protein and fat out of those 2 eggs held her clear to the noon meal. She did not have a mid-morning hunger that needed fixing. The cereal companies spent heavily through the 50s and 60s selling the box as the modern, healthy, easy way to start the morning. Sugar-frosted flakes came in 1952. Cocoa Krispies came in 1958. By the middle of the 60s, the cereal aisle filled a whole wall, cartoons on every box, and black children reached for it same as all the rest. A bowl of those flakes carried 11 grams of sugar. The spike hit by 8:30, the crash by 9:30, and the child was hungry again before 10, with something always close by to reach for. The eggs were still in the icebox. Breakfast had moved to the box, and everything after moved right along with it. Number 2, Dannon came to this country in 1942, and for years it sold exactly one thing: full fat plain yogurt, thick and a little sour, in a small glass jar. No fruit on the bottom, no sweetener, nothing added. It sat in the dairy case next to the cottage cheese, and the older black woman who bought it because it was real food and it kept her full fat. Plain yogurt is a whole protein with live cultures, fat for the fullness, and almost no sugar at all. It was the same food eaten across the old country for 1,000 years. Then in 1947, Dannon dropped strawberry preserves in the bottom, and the sales tripled overnight. By 1977, the sweetened cups had taken over, sold as the light and healthy choice, and each little cup carried more sugar than 3 cookies. The label said light and healthy and 90 calories, and it only said 90 because they had shrunk the cup small enough to make that number come out right. She bought it because the label told her what she wanted to hear. The label said whatever they paid to have it say. Number 1. The most important food the older black woman had in those years is not on this list at all, because she did not eat it. Between supper and breakfast, 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours would pass, and nothing went in. Between breakfast and the noon meal, nothing went in. Not because she was disciplined, and not because she was running some protocol out of a book, but because there was nothing in that kitchen built to pull her back into it after the plates were washed. The Quaker canister was for tomorrow's breakfast. The cottage cheese was for lunch. The jars in the cellar were for the winter. The pot on the stove was for Sunday. Every food on this whole list worked partly because of what was inside it: the fat, the protein, the good bacteria, the collagen, the omega-3s, and it worked partly because of when and how she ate it. At the table, at supper, in a portion a real kitchen off a real stove put out, not out of a single serving package built to vanish before you counted it, and not in front of 3 hours of television, with a bag of something built to keep the hand moving. When the packages arrived, the kitchen stopped closing. And once the kitchen stopped closing, not one food on this list could do the job on its own anymore. The meal times, the table, the shut pantry, the plain, quiet evening, all of it got traded away one piece at a time for something that needed her to keep buying. She did not have willpower. She had a kitchen that closed for the night. There is a photograph somewhere. The older black woman is sitting at the kitchen table, a can of pet milk on the counter behind her, a jar of chow chow on the shelf, the cast iron on the stove. She is not thinking about what she ate. She is not thinking about what she weighs. She is thinking about whether to use the chicken bones for a pot tonight or save them for the morning. She never once called it a diet, and neither does this channel. So let me leave you with this. What is the one food your grandmother kept going on the back of her stove? The one you can still see the second you close your eyes? Put it in the comments and tell me about her. I read every single one, and it means more than you know. And if this is the kind of video you came here for, tap that like and subscribe so the next one comes and finds you. It is already on the way.